Hey, Red Sox fans, welcome back to Talk Sox. Ethan and Brandon here once again to discuss things going on with the Red Sox. Today, a slightly different video because Ethan finally, at long last, has visited Fenway Park. He got his first taste of it. He went on a tour of the stadium, visiting Boston, which is very cool, obviously. I have been there many, many, many times for games, for different events. But obviously, I wanted to chat with Ethan about his sort of first taste of Fenway Park. Again, noting that he has yet to see a game there. He has yet to be in that sort of in-game environment. But I did want to gather his thoughts on visiting Fenway Park for the first time because it's obviously, it's a moment that none of us really forget, seeing that stadium for the first time. So, Ethan, I'll pass it over to you for your general thoughts and I'll give you some questions about specifics.
Yeah, I think just walking in, your mouth kind of drops immediately. Like when you first get into the threshold and you see the sunlight for the first time, walking into Fenway, I will preface it with, again, I wish I was there for a game, but when my girlfriend and I were visiting, unfortunately, we weren't there for a concert, but we were there just for the tour, and a Jonas Brothers concert was going on instead. But you still get a really good idea of what the park and the field looks like, and it was absolutely beautiful. I really also appreciate that during the tour, they kind of explained to you that there was a renovation that went on during the park. So there's the original seating and the new seating. And I really appreciate that the investors that came in said, no, we're not going to knock the old park down. And they invested in keeping everything there. It's so cool. And I learned so much, but again, ask your questions away. I'm in awe of that park. And I've been to Wrigley before, I've been to a few others, but I'm so glad that I got to check off Fenway off my list. It was just incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Wrigley because obviously Wrigley and Fenway are really like the last two sort of, standing homages to that, classic era of baseball, if that's what we can call it. If obviously they're the ones that have been around for so long. Obviously, I'm a Cubs fan besides a Red Sox fan. You and I cover the Cubs besides the Red Sox. There's a lot of, comparisons and similarities to draw there. But I will, just purely on the merits of Fenway itself, I want to get your thoughts immediately on what was your favorite thing that you saw at Fenway Park. I know you went on top of the Green Monster, which I imagine was very cool, but I want to gather your thoughts specifically on your favorite thing.
I think I'll narrow it down to three. Of course, the Green Monster is just really cool to see in general, and being on top of it is really cool. I will also say learning that Fenway has both the tallest wall in baseball and the shortest wall in baseball is really cool. Just kind of like seeing it from the angle that they take you on the tour and realizing that, man, they could fall, like the baseball players could fall in the stands pretty easily on the shortest, and you and I have played before I went to Fenway. You and I have played many a game of MLB The Show, but to see that, where you could not cheat a home run, but get a home run pretty easily with that wall is kind of incredible. The third thing I will say that I found really impressive, and it's because I'm also an Orioles fan, is that I learned that every single modern day baseball field, after they wreck the old one and they put up a new one, the designer of the every MLB field, they base like the concept of it off of Camden Yards. And being an Orioles fan, I just gotta like wave the flag, like, hey, that's so cool. So that was the other thing I found really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously got to give the Orioles a shout out. But yes, obviously Camden Yards is certainly sort of the modern base template for I think what's become of, the modern baseball stadium. I so speaking of modern baseball stadiums, obviously Fenway still has quite a lot of, that old charm. Yeah, obviously, the scoreboard in left field, under the Green Monster is still controlled manually. Were there anything, obviously you've been to Camden Yards, you've been to other modern stadiums. Was there anything about Fenway Park and, the way that, the operations work or anything specifically about, that old charm that really stuck out to you?
I think the seats really like the older seats really stick out to you. The tour guide always makes the joke like, "Oh, they're the most uncomfortable seats in all of MLB." But who cares at the end of the day? These seats have been there for almost over 100 years at this point. Like you're sitting in the butts, where the butts of people who saw, Babe Ruth play before he was traded
Mhm.
off to the Yankees. So it's pretty cool to say that you got to do that. There's also, as many people know who have been to Fenway, there's one red seat all the way on the other side, where if you know it's the longest home run that's ever been hit in Fenway, where a guy got knocked out and, he had a concussion, nobody knew, blah, blah, blah. It's just a cool story to tell. And I think that's just like the razzle dazzle of Fenway, where, again, they had the choice, the investors, to take out all those seats. People say they're uncomfortable. who cares at the end of the day? It's history, and I'm glad that they kept that history in Fenway.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'll give you one more question before I, let you give any concluding thoughts here. But obviously, as an Orioles fan, the Orioles history is a little bit more limited to the Red Sox, just because obviously the Red Sox have been around for longer. They've had, a slightly better history in terms of winning, at least in the beginning and most
Yeah.
recently. But obviously, so you have guys like Ted Williams, you have, Fisk and Rice and Pedro, you know, what was obviously I know we're talking about all the retired numbers and the banners and stuff. Was there anything specific about like all that history of winning and these retired numbers that like really stuck out to you around the stadium?
I think, I mean, they make it very clear that they're winners at the end of the day. There's nothing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you go to any stadium, I think they want to show off that they're winners at the end of the day. But besides the pride of winning, it's also the history of kind of the city of Boston that they really integrate into the stadium. It's not just the Red Sox playing. They have many photos of like the Winter Classic being played at Fenway,
Mhm.
of different like high schools going to Fenway and kind of playing like not minor league games, obviously, but like games like on the field. And I really appreciate that community kind of being put into Fenway as well. The other thing that was really cool, and I will tell people this if they ever want to take the tour and they haven't, I sent you a picture of this and I'm going to put it, in here as the B-roll. We were really lucky that we got to take photos with the four World Series trophies that the Red Sox won, and it was a complete surprise. They let some people do it. It's kind of up in the air depending on weather and if it's raining and blah blah blah. We had a perfect sunny day, and they said, "Hey, we have a surprise end to this tour. You're going to take a picture with the World Series trophies." My girlfriend didn't really care because she likes baseball, but she's like, what is this? My jaw was on the freaking floor. I could not believe it. So that was really cool too. And again, I implore anybody who goes to Fenway, Wrigley, whatever, take the tour because it is, history is a wonderful thing at the end of the day, whether you like baseball or not. I mean, if you're watching these videos, you like baseball. But, there's so much history in this. I do want to flip the question to you really quickly. You've been to every single baseball field in the MLB. You are a mega fan here. So what are your thoughts quickly on Fenway?
Yeah, as Ethan just mentioned, I have been to all 30 baseball stadiums. The only active one I have not been to is the new Texas Ranger Stadium. I went to the old one back in like 2018, right before the new one got put up. So technically, I have not been to that one, and I guess I technically haven't been to the Athletics new stadium since they left the Coliseum. But I don't even acknowledge that they've left Oakland. But I mean, whenever people ask me to rank like my favorite five stadiums that I saw or whatever the case is, I always have to give like the stipulation of like I can't really rank Fenway and Wrigley because it's just like the aura and the vibe of those stadiums is so different. It's you just like you said, you walk out, into that, you see the crowd, you see the stadium for the first time, and it's like your jaw drops. It's like, oh my, I can't believe like you're standing on history, and then you watch a baseball game get played there. It's a very cool, like surreal feeling. I definitely will say I think the Red Sox, Fenway Park has my favorite layout of any stadium. Obviously, there's just such different geography. I mean, left field is so different from, the pesky pole in right field. It's such a, visually, visceral experience, watching baseball get played there. I'm a little biased because I grew up a Cubs fan, so Wrigley Field is like really has a special place in my heart. But it's hard not to say that Fenway Park is perhaps the most magical place to watch a baseball game get played. But as always, especially on this topic, if no other, we'd love to hear, your thoughts on Fenway Park. Have you been to other baseball stadiums? How do they compare? What are your thoughts on them? Ethan and I, obviously we love talking about these kinds of things, especially about these stadiums. So let us know your thoughts. And as always, we'll try to respond to every comment.